Hi, you are listening to Rocklaz Radio,
a podcast discussing inspiring personalities and interesting things. This is your host, Tanmay Shah.
Tanmay is an India-based NFT artist and an entrepreneur with diverse business experience.
This podcast is self-sponsored.
The best way to support this show is to buy his art, NFTs. You can also become his patron. Kindly share this episode on socials and with your friends.
Hello and welcome to another episode of Rocklaz Radio. On today's episode, we have with us a very special guest, Icki, who I've been an admirer of, and he's a thought leader. I've always loved attending his spaces and knowing his views on the current NFT trends and his philosophy on art, and so much fun. He has a really great sense of humor. So, welcome, Icki. I hope you're doing great.
Yeah, no, good to be here. Thank you for having me. How are you today?
Right. I'm very good. And let us just mention, pay respects to the Queen. It was very sad to hear about her yesterday.
Yeah.
Yes. So we all, even in India, the Commonwealth, we haven't seen any monarch who has been there in power for such a long time, 70 years.
Yeah.
That is
I don't know. It must be 14 US presidents or something like that. And that's at least a couple of wars.
Yes.
Yeah, it's quite something.
Okay. So let's begin. I'll give a quick introduction about Icki, and then we can talk to him more and get to know him better. Icki is born in London, UK, United Kingdoms. Is a digital artist with years of experience in commercial and 3D industry, and he has expertise in innovative display mediums such as holographic installation and AR. His work takes cues from both minimalism and conceptual art, but subverts the aesthetics and tropes of both tradition to provide a unique commentary on the values of digital art domain.
Yeah,
His plagiarism,
that about sums it up. Yeah.
His plagiarism series explored what digital art is and how provenance and a new valuation model treats infringement and copycat culture. The title Meta Plagiarism is recently exhibited alongside Andy Warhol at the contemporary Calgary. Where is that? Where is this?
It was in Canada, yeah. At the contemporary Calgary.
That is so alongside Andy Warhol. That's amazing.
Yeah, it was the first NFTs with Bloom, with the collective, that Contemporary Calgary had put up, which was quite cool. It was for Look 22 with Christie's and Katie Lang and a bunch of interesting kind of people and creatives. Yeah, I mean, it's not that unusual if you think about it. I mean, Warhol was pop culture. NFTs are somewhat pop culture. The work makes it's got a conceptual narrative. It's trying to say something. So I think it was if there was any artist you were going to be exhibited with, it would probably be, someone like Andy Warhol. You're not, I don't see much digital work kind of sitting alongside more classic, Renaissance or, it does sometimes, but you know what I mean? It's a better fit, I think. I actually think the whole digital art movement is a lot like the pop culture movement. If you exclude kind of the generative art movement.
So where can we find this? I'm at your Super Rare and your foundation, also the Bloom website. Where is this particular work? Where can we show the audience?
You can find that one. I think that one is on Foundation, but it's not meant to be experienced on a screen. It's better experience. It was created for a hologram, so it's better to see it in its kind of in the physical world. So I think I've got a video of it on my pinned tweet somewhere.
I see a meta-plagiarism on the foundation. Let me just share it.
Yeah, this was a part of a 3-part series. So yeah, that's it. But it's meant to be a hologram, right? Which is why you've got a black alpha. Yeah, so it's not.
Wow, so it's meant to be a hologram. So can people put their hand through it? How does it appear?
Yeah, it's hypervision, so it's LED fans. So you can see an example of it if you look at my my Twitter in my pinned tweets. And you open up my pinned tweet and you go down to the next link. Yeah, if you. Yes, there it is. That's at the Metaverse Summit. Yeah. So it can be as large as you want. It's modular. They decided to put it in a prism, but you can do it in numerous ways.
That is very innovative. We don't come across many hologram artists.
I'm not a hologram artist. I'm just an artist, and I when I create work, I think about the ontology, the language, what it's trying to say, and depending on one of the beautiful things about the digital art medium is that you have so many different ways to experience it. You can experience it on a screen, in AR, in virtual, as a projection, So when you create work, when I create work, I always think about how it should be experienced, right? And that dictates what the design language should be. This wouldn't be just a simple hero object and a black background if it wasn't for hologram. If you look at something like Tutorial, my latest piece on Super Rare, very different. Yeah. And that's going to the Beijing Contemporary this month to be on a very large screen, 20 foot, I think, in outside the Beijing Contemporary. So yeah, different thing altogether. That's it. Yeah. You'll definitely want to open that one up because it's portrait. Yeah. Well.
It's like a cube of made out of platinum or something, melting and forming back again.
Yeah, it's based on a very famous photographer, Hiroshi Sugimoto, and who I'm a big fan of. That's kind of what the design aesthetic was about. But it's a million. There's nothing except for 1 million spheres. So everything you see is just a sphere. So the cube is actually just spheres. The background is just spheres. So it was, how can you use one thing and a very simple technique like advection and, create something that feels complex. And it's really a narrative around, what the lack of critique in the NFT space means. when the algorithm is your only art critic. So, the question becomes, people are just lumping tutorials now. So it's kind of a play on that, to do something simple that has the aesthetic, the look and feel of a tutorial, but by picking one specific technique and that's it, and reductionist, taking it down to just nothing but a sphere. So so it's a different thing for a different way to be experienced.
That is amazing. You just feel like keeping on looking at it. Just like your other artworks, it's very there's a common thread amongst all your artworks that they are very shiny and you clear in what they see and very minimalistic. So
they're not always. The stuff that I've released so far, they do tend to be quite mesmerizing, but that's because I take on kind of classic compositional form, which is, symmetry and animations are paced, but that's just if I'm doing animation, if I'm doing still work, it's a different thing altogether. I recently people don't see my stills very often except for in the physical world, but I did do Rick Hustenbrook called me out. He's having a competition for his work Self. I don't know if you know that piece by Rick Hustenbrook. Anyway, and he that's the Plagiarism series. And he wanted me to do something for that, and I did my take on that, and that's a very different type of work because it's a still, so it's much more about creating something that feels tactile, that you want to explore, but it still kind of takes on that classic minimalist approach. So
So Icki, how did you get started with art? How long have you been doing it?
Well, I've been an artist for as long as I can remember, but I started out a commercial career in my late teens with Island Records UK, and I worked on Amy Winehouse's album Frank and then her second album Back to Black, between kind of creative and art direction. And then I went into Universal from there and did that for a long time. And I worked with many artists with typical creation brief in quite a unique role, kind of in between, and did a bit of AV and did a bit of live stuff, and and then it kind of got too much, and I left, and I did my own thing. The bottom line was you couldn't really make a career money that easily as a 3D or digital artist at the time because we lacked provenance, so we were unable to kind of sit among our peers as more traditional artists. So you do what a lot of us have done. You kind of find ways to utilize those skills. Some people go into CG, some people go into film, and some people go into design and architecture and so on and so forth. So that's what I did. And then I became a 3D generalist. I got a little bit. I struggled a little bit with substance abuse, and I left, and I took some time for myself to kind of gather my thoughts, and I decided that was not the environment that I wanted to be in, and I left, and I started a family, and so I kind of just freelance, and then of course this blockchain technology, non-fungible tokens, and of course the ability to link art to them, through the metadata on the contract, meant that we could have provenance, and so it was something I was excited about, and I jumped in as soon as I found out, and the rest is kind of near history,
And the Bloom initiative, how did that come into the existence? And you're the founding member.
Yeah, the Bloom Collective. There's 10 founding members. The Bloom Collective is basically a bunch of people that met on either through commercial work or within NFT via mutual discords, and it's basically just a group of like-minded professionals that care about the same things and have the same mission. And so we decided to form the Bloom Collective to kind of help drive that adoption narrative forward and to start addressing some of the things that are really barriers for increased buy-side markets, and so that was kind of what it was initially created for, and to be a collective marketing platform, for us as artists, as creatives, and it's kind of just grown from there. And now we have a community of professionals, and it's a good place to hang around. Yeah. And these are the people that I go to for advice, whether it's feedback, creatively, constructively, because they're people that are my friends, that I can be honest with, that can be honest with me, and that I respect. And I think that's something I recommend to everybody, is to not just to ask for feedback from random people. They don't know you, they don't know your work, you don't know what their technical ability is. Find people that understand you and your work and what you're trying to do, and form bonds with them. Yeah.
So what are the barriers? You mentioned barriers for which the Bloom Collective was created.
The adoption narrative. Yeah. I mean, barriers for the buy side. I mean, look, the NFT market is, 90%, if not more, crypto native. So, there's a lot more supply than there is demand, right? So the question is why, right? Why is large institutional art funds that spend more a month on art than the entire NFT industry has since inception? Why are they not interested? What's the reason? And it was about understanding that, and looking at the issues. And the issues are, things like lack of correct protocol for conservatorship, storage issues, loan provenance, valuation models, inconsistent valuation models, and so someone has to begin to talk about these things, because, if it's really good saying, oh yeah, we're so early, and in 10 years, when people realize about digital ownership, it's gonna moon, no, it's not. No, it's not. I talk to these people. I've consulted with art funds and institutional art funds for a lot of my life. That's not what they think. They're very aware of what NFTs are. They're not idiots. They're very aware. They've looked into it. They know. They've chosen not to invest. So the question is why?
Yeah, why?
Yeah. So nobody's really answering that. So I just see a lot of influencers saying "wag me" and we're early. And the truth is we're not that early anymore. And I do believe in it, but I believe it will be absorbed by the wider arts and cultures, and then NFTs will take on a whole new lease of their own, and maybe not just be about the art use case, so.
Do you think it is because they have already set system and they have an hierarchy and things are already set for them? So they don't want to go to a place where there are no middlemen, or where things are something new or non-traditional. Are they afraid to enter?
They're not afraid. They're professionals. They're risk managing. You listen. The way you value traditional art varies depending on where you go, but fundamentally it's about provenance, right? Tracking the artwork, and authenticating it back to the artist's studio if you can. It's about consensus and critique, therefore historic significance, and it's about primary and secondary sale data. That's how you value art at a very basic level. So we don't have any of that. Just because a Beeple sells for $69 million, if someone else hasn't bought it for $69 million, it's not worth $69 million. I don't care what crypto native traders say. And these institutional art funds aren't idiots, respectfully, and they're not going to just turn around and go, oh, because you tell me it's worth this much. It is. It's not. So the valuation model is completely wrong. It's ridiculous. Now, there are many examples of where it's right, where people are selling regularly and there's kind of a natural buy and sell kind of demand, cycle that kind of makes more sense, which is good. And then there's the valuation model. Then there's loan to provenance. So, I exhibited my work alongside Andy Warhol, but that's not displayed anywhere on the contract, because for that to happen, the token would have to be sent to the gallery. And it's hard for us to go to a collector and say, listen, we've got this thing, can you just trust me and send this token to a random address, right? So you can't split ownership and location on the contract where you should be able to. I did talk to Manifold and Fast Tackle about this, though, and there are potentially solutions coming where you can loan it and it will come back to your wallet and all this kind of stuff. So it's not that it's not being addressed, but it wasn't. So that's a big thing, because how can you show provenance? I mean, it's all nice for us today, but I'm talking 100 years, 200 years, 300 years, 500 years. Yeah, but what's going on today, people won't remember. Yeah, it's just how it is. It's life. So that's an issue. Conservatorship is another one. You don't hand over administrative rights, like restoration. So Stefan sold a piece to the Utrecht Museum in their primary collection, and they had no idea how to conserve it. What happens upon death? What happens upon this? Who's going to have the administrative rights? What happens if there's an issue with storage? We know that it's not that suffers with permanence. You have to pin to IPFS. There's so many. There's so many different. So there are these technical issues as well. So these technical barriers. There's a valuation barrier, and then you've got kind of this consensus thing. So, the traditional art world, there is a handful of galleries that mean success, right? Pace, MoMA, Guggenheim, and the likes. So without them adopting, the rest of the art world won't jump in. This is just a small, tiny little piece, of that world. I mean, it's not even, it's nothing. Rothko sales, one artist last year is like the whole market for NFT. You can't compare it. There's not enough people looking at ways to really address that. There's a few people now that are starting to, X-Pace Gallery, Neil Digital, for example, in China, huge market in China. They have their own crypto issues. There's got to be accessibility for purchase in fiat and things like that. There's got to be better curation. So, there's a huge list. The other big issue, of course, with digital art is it's very unorganized. If you when you buy art, you need to understand where it sits in its collective, right? So, generative art has an art history dating back to the 1950s. It makes sense that something like art blocks would be successful in the traditional sense.
1950s.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. Generative art goes back to the 1950s. Yeah. So there's a history there. We're writing history now. And, where does your work sit? Photography is well understood, because that's been a medium that's been used. It's digitized, but also been a medium that's used for a long time. So it's a little bit understood. And the subcategories within it, landscape, portrait, glamour, fashion, so on and so forth, has kind of been understood. But, when you look at animation, say long form, short form, abstract, still life, whatever, it's not really well understood. Commercial work versus traditional art. If I can animate a really cool little character that looks like a Pixar thing, the crypto natives might think it's worth, 200 ETH, but the art lovers in the traditional art world won't. It's a cartoon. It's not saying anything, So if it's art-centric, like work of, say, Tony Barble, maybe, So it's, and I'm not saying this to, point at anyone. I think there's space for all of this. But I'm saying when you talk about adoption, these are all of the kind of variables that you have to consider.
You mentioned, so we have provenance in NFTs. We have kind of many of the things.
Provenance. we have a little bit of provenance. We don't have proper provenance.
The main, I think, issue is of the secondary sale, as you mentioned, the people's sale and who is buying it from that particular seller. So I think, don't you think that with time it will get better when like people have those secondary and?
Well, yeah. I mean, look, secondary sales have been pretty good this year. Actually, they're up about 75% from last year, according to the Art Basel report. That doesn't include collectibles, right? Because if you look at collectibles, obviously there's a lot of secondary market. I'm talking one specifically. So they're good signs, but you need multi-platform. You need work to be exhibited in museums, galleries, public spaces. You need, I think we're on the right track. But again, primary, secondary data is one factor within an evaluation model. It's not the entire thing, and the risk is so severe for an institutional art fund that operates in fiat. They've got to manage the risk of the art valuation. They've got to manage crypto risk. It's a minefield. That's why I think giving them fiat exposure is a great thing. Nifty Gateway does that really well. Bloom did a really good job on Nifty like that. We sold most of our work with fiat. So it's going in the right direction. But again, people have to take ownership and accountability of these things, because if you don't, no one will. It's very, like I said, it's very easy to sit back and say, eventually it's going to get better and blah 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 blah. But someone's got to do it. So yeah.
So it has given accessibility to a lot of people worldwide. Like those artworks or people from those backgrounds wouldn't have come up in traditional world so quickly. So what do you think about that, and how does the art world think about getting to see artwork from places which they wouldn't have thought it would come from?
Yeah, I think that's a really big positive, right? Like I said, traditionally there is a far bigger challenge in terms of getting yourself out there, being seen, and there's talent everywhere, huge talent everywhere. So yeah, I think it's a positive thing. I think the immediacy of digital is great. There's an exhibition. I'm hosting an exhibition in LA for Super Chief for women of color, and it doesn't matter where you are. If I like the work, it can be displayed. So I don't have to send it. I don't have to put it in the mail, and so yeah, I think the immediacy and seeing everyone having kind of the same opportunity to shine in some respects, or relatively the same. I think it's one of the great, wonderful things. I think in terms of who's been successful, though, I think it was a first come, first serve. I think a lot of people that were here early managed to build the kind of respect and provenance. Yeah.
So what do you think, how can a one-of-one artist be successful and sell more NFTs?
When you find out, tell me. You unlike in the traditional world, where you have a gallerist that has a network of collectors that markets you, that displays your work, you have to do it all yourself here. So number one to be successful is you have to build a platform, because without a platform, social media and so on and so forth, you're just not seen, and your voice isn't very loud. So number one is you need to build a platform. Number two is you have to be true to who you are and not follow, the next trend, because you'll never be the trendsetter, and therefore you'll never spark the what's hot right now bug. Anybody can make an X copy like artwork, but every time they do, we say it's like an X copy. And that's the point, right?
That adds to his branding.
Yeah, and so it's kind of like, doesn't mean it won't sell, but find who you are as an artist, and be true to it and stay there, and then invest time. If you've done number one and number two, invest time in kind of communicating why your work is significant. I'd say those three things are probably the most important. And don't waste your time following accounts on Twitter or what have you that are just influencers that, it's not, what's the point? Go and buy a lottery ticket. You have better odds, Buy my art. I'm going to follow you and comment and GM every day just because you hope that you might be seen, or you might be liked or retweeted. It's stupid. Unless that person is adding value, really adding value, then don't follow them. Don't give them a platform. You have to be accountable for the space.
I love that about you. You always address what's on everybody's mind, or what people are usually having to do in your tweets, and you're very clear and blunt about it. So I love that.
Well, yeah,
so if not,
there's nothing to be shy about. I'm not being rude. I'm not being offensive. I'm not pointing my finger at somebody. I'm just saying some general things that are important, in my opinion.
So people think this is the best way. So if not this, then how does one reach to collectors or potential collectors?
Well, for a start, you don't DM them. It's interesting. How many collectors do you know and follow that you know with certainty buy the type of work that you create? And I would challenge anybody with that same question. Because I can guarantee you're following a bunch of people that buy art that looks nothing like your art. Why do you think it's going to suddenly change? There's a great account. He's a very nice collector, a good friend, Truffington.
Lord Truffington.
And he's got a great resource. And it's a resource of lots of collectors and their wallets. And you can go into those wallets and you can have a look and see the type of work. Once you find someone that might resonate with you, you might want to engage with them. That's a good start. Take the opportunities when they are, build a connection. Because what you're trying to do really is just spark up enough of a connection that you can be seen. That's it. This idea of shilling is that word is disgusting. Don't use that word. Shilling means trickery. It means selling snake oil. We're not selling snake oil. We're marketing ourselves because the gallery won't do it for us. There's a difference, so don't hard sell anything. If you need to hard sell it, you're doing it wrong. And if something doesn't sell, Oniro, super talented artist.
Who?
Oniro from the Bloom Collective. Incredible work. Mind-bendingly good work. And just wasn't selling. Was not selling. Because it just wasn't connecting. And then wakes up today, 2 pieces. Right? These aren't cheap pieces. This isn't like 0.1 ETH. This is premium work. Just overnight. Because patience, connecting. That's how work sells in the real world. It doesn't sell overnight. This weird delusion. People need to get away from these unhealthy behaviors. and comparing yourself to others and all this stuff. And people say, oh, but, this is my income, and I couldn't think, I say to them, well, what were you doing before NFT? Would you be homeless without NFT? Find another means of income. I know that life can be very hard for many people, and I empathize with that completely. But let's not pretend like without NFT you're a dead man. Because if that was the case, how lucky are you that this even came around? Talk about lucky. What would you have done? Where there is a will, there is a way. So don't be reliant on NFT for your income. It will be poison for your creativity, poison for your anxiety, poison for your relationships. It's unhealthy. You have to make sure that you do this because you love it. Otherwise, forget it. It's hard work.
Absolutely. And about staying true to yourself, there are many people, or suppose me, I like to always explore and experiment with different mediums and styles. So what do you think about that? Is the person's whole collection supposed to look like one another pieces, or
Man,
what?
We're artists.
What?
Look, we're artists. Create what you want to create. That's who you are. You can't fight that. But the truth is, I struggle with this too, because my work is kind of conceptual digital. But that means it lacks a certain cohesion unless it's a body of work within one collection. And the advantages of that is that you can be a lot freer in terms of your creativity. But the disadvantages is you're not as easily identifiable, and that's important. If you're talking about commercial success, being identifiable is important. So you do what you want, but understand where the pros and cons are. And I got to be honest with you, generally, not always. I'm talking about myself here, right? So I'm a classic example of who this doesn't apply to. But generally speaking, people that haven't found something that is cohesive yet are still developing. They're not really fully cooked yet. And that's they haven't found their direction yet. Like I said, not always the case, but just more often than not. So it's not wrong that collectors look at a body of work and this is all over the place. I like this piece, but I don't necessarily like the artist. It's just a trade-off. You've got to accept it.
All right.
Yeah, you can't dictate. You can't tell people what to like and what to buy. And if your work is all over the place, then you lack the ability to build foundations. I know, because I struggle with it.
So how did you overcome that?
I didn't. I just.
Okay.
It's a choice, right? It's a choice. I do a lot of work, digital couture. I do, fashion stuff. I still like commercial stuff, and then I've got my art. My art is generally reductionist, minimalist, conceptual, animation, occasionally stills, but it is what it is. You kind of have to like Icki and me as a brand to really follow and understand where I'm going. It's not like you can just see a piece of art and go, oh, that's an Icki. So it's kind of like it's a challenge, and you either kill yourself trying to put yourself in a box, or you just accept it. And maybe I'm a really slow cook, and maybe I'm also not cooked, despite the fact that I've been doing this for well over 20 years. Yeah. So maybe it's just I haven't found that thing yet. Maybe. I kind of like to sit in the nothing. So yeah, it is what it is. You can't.
It's accepting it and living with it. Yes. Being happy with it.
Out of your control, aren't they? Or you change them. But again, just understand what that means in terms of how it's going to impact you.
Yeah, so there are trade-offs, as you mentioned. One is letting yourself free and trying out different things. But then again, what will the collector think? And then if you want to be on the one particular cohesion or one particular art style, you feel limited.
Yeah.
But then it has the other benefits.
It's a tricky one, isn't it? Yeah, it is. It is a tricky one.
All right, let's explore that together. So what is your process of creating art?
I spend 90% of the time conceptualizing. So reading, studying, thinking, making notes and ideas, thinking about questions that we don't ask. And then once I feel like I'm onto something, like there's something to explore, I go into kind of an R&D phase. So I look at all the same kind of stuff. I pull inspirations together, make mood boards, things like that.
Mood boards?
Yeah. Just,
what is that?
Like, like boards with images.
Board, okay, board. Okay, yeah.
Whiteboards, blue boards, blue boards. And then from that, I kind of get a feel of what I want to do, and then I start more technical R&D. So if it's an animation, I try and think, how can I make this come alive technically? So I might, get into my 3D software and play around, and then I go into, once I feel like I'm ready, it's very quick. Once I feel like I'm ready, it's kind of composition, rendering, bit of post-production, and I'm done. Yeah, and as part of conceptualizing, I might think about what the work, how it will be experienced, audio, things like that. But I'm notoriously a low minter. I've minted 5 works technically. 1 edition for Cause and Cure, which was the first NFT I minted.
Why so?
Because it takes me time. Because I believe in provenance, and I believe in the long term. So I don't want to put anything out there that I don't entirely believe in. It's just the way it is. Also because I'm spending a lot of time building a platform. I'm thinking more 1 year, 2 year. Building a platform, working on Bloom, taking opportunities that come up, collaborating with people like Neil Digital, working with galleries, working with art funds. It's a lot to do. So, I'm in no rush.
You talked about art funds. How did you, so what kind of association is there with the art funds? Is it traditional, or are there people who are exploring into NFTs?
It's digital. It's traditional. Yeah, I did that when I left my job, and I kind of did a bit of 3D generalist work, and I started to consult. Try and get back into art, and that was the first job I got, and I just kind of gave me some experience, and then I just kept doing it for a while. It just taught me about the trad art world, about how things are valued, and at an institutional level.
Wow.
I make it sound easy. I do art fund, but it's a bit more to it. But it depends on. I bucket all of those types of things together. But yeah,
is this like an investment fund, venture capitalist fund who's trying to invest in?
Yeah, it could be an investment fund. Yeah, usually in a large institution, investment bank, or will have numerous funds for different things, different asset classes, and sometimes they have art funds. Yeah.
So they're investing with the expectation of returns, or just for beautifying their walls?
It's investment. But yeah, some large banks and things like that do take a lot of pride in their collections and do show them around their physical sites. But I mean, it's to invest, it's to make money. It's the same reasons people buy out an NFT.
And
how many people do you know that buy out to put it on their wall?
Hardly. So I also hear that most of the artwork ends up in ports and like storage places. It
Does sometimes, yeah. Yeah, Japanese banks are renowned for it. Nomura. Yeah, sometimes it does. It's expensive to store. But yeah, if it can be exhibited somewhere in a why not? It's also cheaper to insure in a lockup. So you've got to take that into account when you assess the potential appreciation if you're talking about really, fine art. Yeah, I mean, it's an investment.
So I have heard this financial clause where people in America can deduct their income tax, when they purchase an art and resell it to the museum, and they get a good amount of deduction in giving away that work for charity. Does that happen in UK and Japan as well?
Probably. I mean, I'm not an accountant, so I'm not too sure. No, it was never anything that I needed to worry about. So yeah, it's professionals that do that for a living. So I don't know too much about that, to be honest.
My question was because I don't think that's the main motive, but claim just for the sake of tax deduction, is there a majority lot who is doing that, or is it just for the pride of owning it and reselling it in future?
Sorry, could you ask the question again?
So this factor for purchasing the art. So what basically happens is they purchase the art from the artist, price it up 10 times, and then donate it to a charitable trust. So what the American law does is they can deduct that amount from the tax that they have to pay to the government.
Sounds like fraud to me.
No, this happens in India. With cash.
Valuing it up 10 times and just donating it to a charitable trust sounds like fraud to me.
Something legal. That's actually factual. That's factual. People do it.
Maybe. Yeah, I have no idea. Yeah.
So in India, what happens is you can claim tax deduction when you do donations in cash. So when you're giving money, you can deduct that from your payment.
Got it. Okay.
So I think that happens in UK as well. But this is very peculiar about US.
If there's something you can do with your taxes in the UK, damn right, someone's doing it. That's for sure.
So that's not legal with commodities in India and in UK, I believe. But that happens in US with art. So I was just wondering that's something.
Yeah, I don't know about it, but
it's very funny.
Yeah, well, if you can, why not?
So if that is something. That's just a fun fact that I want to share. Okay, let's talk. Let's talk back about your art. I have pulled up a piece. Tell us the process. What was the thought process behind it?
Which is yeah. So this is part of that same series, the Plagiarism series. And really what this was, it was a play on this at the time. Maurizio Catalan did that piece, Comedian, which was a banana strapped to a wall. And people were using that image on the NFT Twitterverse as kind of a statement of what is real art, But that's not what the piece was about. Catalan's conceptual piece was about, the double entendre between comedic prop and, global trade, to simplify. And so I kind of thought that was quite interesting. It's kind of like, the outside world looking into NFTs, and what do they see? They see apes, ape, banana, it's quite interesting. And so I started to think about, the conceptual narrative of, collectibles are like the silicon bosom, of the NFT industry.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so that's what the work is about. It's kind of a reference to that, and within our own world, within our meta, what is deemed acceptable is not under any other rule, of what is acceptable in the traditional world. It's almost the global trade versus our little neck of the wood. So this is my comedic prop. So yeah, that's what that one is about in a nutshell.
What are the bubbles on top and the bottom for?
That's symmetry. So it's a compositional choice. And if you look at the first piece in the series, the one we first looked at, you'll notice
this one or this one, the Genesis or the Plagiarism.
Yeah. So there you go. There's those three bubbles again in the middle of the piece.
Yeah. Okay.
You see, it's just a cohesion between the work because it's the story continues, and then the final work is that central bubble, really. Yeah. So it's kind of just going in as you tell the story. They're meant to be viewed alongside one another. You have to see it from the bottom, then the top right, then the left in a line. Yeah.
Wow. So, how do you design the music for it, or is that a collaboration for music?
Yeah, I didn't. The first one was a incredible artist in their own right, Toustant, who's amazing, but also has a very great career in audio. Was very kind and gave me did it for me for the first piece. And then the last two I worked with Ondi, you can see the split there. And Ondi did the audio for the second and third piece. And so I kind of chose to work with him. Yeah. So that. And actually, they've got really nice histories. If you go to that first piece, there's a very interesting. You see what I listed it at. And I think that's important. So this is this was back in July 2021.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but you can see how many bids, right? And it's about letting the market dictate your value, and so that for me was more important, and that's been a trend, and the higher you base your price, the harder that becomes. You lose a lot of that engagement. So there's something to be said for that.
Yeah, that's an important point on pricing.
Yeah, definitely.
Let the market decide the value.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, that's interesting. Foundation's interesting because that's 1.5 ETH on July 21. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
So
sold for 1
stays the same, but the dollar value changes on Foundation. Yeah, for some reason I thought the ETH value changed, but no, it doesn't. It's locked in, which makes sense. So they price in ETH.
So would you recommend people to drop their value as low as possible and then let your platform and the community that you've created decide the value?
No. I recommend an artist values their work to sell if they want to sell it.
Sorry?
An artist should value their work to sell, if they want to sell it. It's about understanding the value. If you come here and you're fresh and you've never sold anything before, you've got to give people an entrance point. and you've got to build engagement. You can't just say, "Oh, well, I'm a big superstar in the real world." Doesn't mean anything here. You need to start from the ground up, and you need to humble yourself. And changing your price every now and again is not ideal. You're better off just pricing it to sell and seeing what the market thinks and using it as a sign of what you need to do in terms of building your brand. Too many people come here expecting to take over the world in a night. It's just ridiculous. Do you know how much hard work goes into doing those things? If you think all those people that you see who are selling for huge amounts of money, or people like me in the kind of more middle tier, don't think these people got lucky overnight, because look at their accounts, look at what's been going on. There is a long history. Don't be under any delusion, whether it's the 100,000 plus followers on Instagram that they've built up over the last 10 years, or whether it's their commercial experience, or whether it's the engagement they've created for themselves in a short time on Twitter, whether it's the value they add. It's not this is not easy. This is not an easy job.
I was reading up about X copies because he's got his official artworks on the passes for NFT London. So he has a history of more than 10 years. He was famous on Tumblr, and he started minting on Super Rare back in 2018. So
selling for dollars, like $1 or $2, like Tezos. Like early days of Tezos. Yeah, that's right.
So he's also from London. Have you got to interact with him? Or
I have, actually, yeah. Yeah. At a known origin event.
Is he doxed, or is he like Banksy?
No, he's not doxed.
So he was announced that, okay, this is X copy, or how did you figure out, okay, this guy is X copy?
No, I knew he would be there. It's just courtesy, isn't it? He's not doxed. There's many people you meet in real life that aren't doxed. You see all the pictures of NFT, New York and stuff. And people have got avatars on their faces in the photos. There's a courtesy, isn't there? Someone doxes you, it's a pretty malicious thing to do if someone doesn't want to be doxed. Yeah.
So
Murad Pak's like that, isn't he?
Sorry?
Pak.
Murad.
Yeah, Murad Pak. Anyone that knows Pak's story knows who Pak is. There's no secret there.
Can you tell us the story?
Well, he's been around for a long time, and his company UndreamNet has been around for a long time. A bit of simple searching, you can find him presenting for Undream, photos of him. He's not. He was on Vimeo 10 plus years ago. So if you choose to engage in the mystery, you can.
All right.
It doesn't mean I'll dox him and start posting photos of him.
I am getting Aziz Pak Murad. Okay, got it. The one who has black circle on his profile.
Who?
Murad Pak.
Pak.
MU.
The legend.
MU.
Pak. Yeah,
got it. I have seen it. I've been following him on Twitter.
Probably the most successful NFT artist of all time. I think he's sold more than anyone else, including Beeple.
Oh.
Yeah.
I didn't know about the fact. Yes. 378,000 followers.
Yeah. And he also has a Twitter account called Archilect, which is an AI, which has over 1 million followers. Yeah.
Wow.
Pak's a very interesting character.
What do you think about Banksy coming on NFTs? He has his own website, I guess.
What do you mean? What do I think about Banksy coming onto NFTs?
Yeah.
What do you mean? That Banksy was on a NFT platform called Portion years ago, selling physical work. So, I mean, if Banksy wants to sell NFTs, he can sell NFTs.
He can sell anything.
Well, he's just an artist.
Yeah.
He's very well respected. Yeah, he's great. He's great. You know, if you're into street art, he's one of the big names, right? Not the biggest.
I am reading his book.
Yeah. You enjoying it?
Yeah. A vandal, come artist, come some person who brings out social issues in a very comedic way. So I just love that.
He's very interesting. Yeah, and his work's very interesting. I've been to a couple of his exhibitions.
And a person who's most famous artist yet doxed or not known who is the actual person. And I do have
to just tell you that I have to get to a meeting shortly.
Yes.
I know you usually do these for like double the time, but I have so much going on. I didn't want to let you down, so I thought I'd come for at least
no problem. Yeah. So let's you are going to be there at NFT London. So
yeah.
What topic?
Yeah, I'll be speaking at NFT London. I'm a bit confused. I mean, I was meant to be talking about the valuation, but which we touched on earlier, about the adoption narrative. But you know how they are. They're like, they grouped me with some people who are very interesting, but I don't know if that's because it's going to be a panel or. So I'm waiting to hear what the details are. But yes, I will be speaking at NFT London.
That would be awesome. I'm also looking forward to it, and I'm looking forward to see you as well. I'm also going to be a speaker there.
Yeah, what are you going to be excited?
So the question which I asked you, how does one artist, how to sell art as one artist? So that was my topic.
Yeah.
So
good topic.
So I thought of choosing a topic which I want to learn more about. So that's why I'm doing a research.
That's a good idea. Yeah, I like that.
So asking the same question to amazing people like you with a lot of experience and finding out different ways.
I'm just like you. I'm no different,
But very insightful. So, all right. I'm just going to go quickly through the different questions which I had planned up. What are your artistic influences? It'll be a rapid fire then now.
Yeah, we can rapid fire. There's so many, digital greats like Raoul Marx. I mentioned Hiroshi Sugimoto, photographer. A number of Tim Walker photography, fashion, Chanel, music, Bjork, art, Juan Miro from Surrealism, Bosch from Renaissance, minimalism, everybody. There's so many. I mean, it depends on what movement,
How do you think?
Expressionist, of course. Yeah, I love Pollock and Rothko.
Oh yeah, I love that.
They're not influences though. I just love them. I guess
they're more like. They're more like anti-minimalistic.
Yeah, kind of. Yeah, I take my my inspiration from kind of the world around me. From science, from life, from relationships. That's kind of where I get my kind of inspiration, I suppose.
How do you think we can onboard non-crypto natives to NFTs?
Address the valuation model, loan to provenance, and accessibility outside of crypto, fiat.
Many people in Banksy's case also who had never visited museums, he started buying his artwork online even 10 years ago. So if something is hip or popular in the culture, I think people can just come in and find a way to get it. It's not that you have to be in galleries and know people in galleries to get it. What do you think?
Yeah, maybe. I'm not sure. I haven't thought about it.
So what counter questions do you get when you talk to a non-crypto native about NFTs?
I don't get many counter questions. I get a lot of. It depends on how you pitch it. I make the distinction between collectibles and the art use case, and I talk about provenance, and that's it. And just say this is art that you can buy if you like art, and it's digital, but now it has provenance, and that's it. I don't overcomplicate it.
I also tell it in ways like, suppose you could buy a brush of Jackson Pollock or his initial paintings when he's starting off right from the beginning, and then have a provenance about it. That is one thing that I say. Second would be you can show the ownership of a digital artwork, which wasn't possible in traditional ways. So, but it's very tough, people around me or in India, for them collecting art is something out of the world. Why? Why to collect art? It is for free online. Just go and see. I mean, it's just an attitude. Art is a hobby. Being artist is not a serious job.
There's a difference between buying art that you can furnish your home with, buying a rug or buying furniture, or that's a very different thing, isn't it? Compared to, or in the more developed markets in the West, buying art to actually, furnish your home. It's very personal, and you only spend real money, significant money on that kind of art if you love art, if you're into art. So that's not any different, Digital is even less so because you don't have very many display mediums. Offering utility like prints and things like that is quite nice. Yeah. Makes sense to me. It's a bit weird, isn't it? Spending money on digital art. Why?
And also, I feel it's better to talk to people who already like art instead of people who are not, who don't find any value in art. So,
yeah. I mean, forget it. I mean, not the world. The world isn't the market. It's serious. People that love art are the market. Not everybody. That idea that it's everybody is crazy. But I mean, it follows trends. I mean, digitalization. In the 90s, internet was new. Now metaverse will be like that. I can imagine in 20 years, 30 years, people thinking that digital art is the only art. I wouldn't be surprised.
And there's another thing about licensing. What are your views on licensing digital artwork, or do you see any ways we can do that? Like casinos need digital, some animations in the background, or some hotels, elevators, or
nothing new.
Sorry?
That's nothing new. I mean, we've been doing that for years, and hospitality is rife for that. Look at Dream LA. Look at what King of Midtown's doing. Tommy, that's a lot of hospitality blending. Look at Ross from Fan 3. Concert visuals, and that's not unusual. I think that's just digital. That's just digital kind of commercialism.
And so with NFTs, there'll be a provenance also, like that can be one aspect of it, but it's already being done, so that's okay. How do you think? How can an outsider approach these places for licensing or just show their art and like take a discussion forward? In other words, with NFTs,
it depends, doesn't it? It depends on who you're trying to reach. It's no different to any other business venture. You find out who the key people are, you contact them, you try and provide credentials in your contact message, and and that's it. And they either like it or they don't. Most probably, if it's a cold call without someone you've met, they probably won't respond. Right? It's kind of, there are agencies that do that kind of thing, and a couple of other ways in. But I mean, now we're kind of deviating. We're kind of talking about commercializing work, and that's not really what I'm about. I'm an artist. I create art for art, and the fact that it sells is great, but that's not why I do it. And if I wanted to do commercializing, if I wanted to commercialize my digital work, which many people do, there are many industries to do that. Graphic design, CG, loads, advertising. There's loads of opportunity for artists to commercialize their skill sets.
Yeah, I got a feedback, or somebody suggested to me in one of the spaces, so I just thought of running it across to you. My next question would be, how is the art scene in London, and how does one get an gallery representation or so?
The art scene is amazing in London. Digital art scene, not so much. How do you get representation from a gallery? You contact them and you show them who you are. It's not easy. It's very, very difficult. You need to have some credentials. You probably start in galleries that aren't that great. You try and not sign a ridiculous contract, and you work your way through. Or you get curated. You talk to curators who have already had those inroads, who are curating formal events, and they curate some of your work, and then you start building your credentials.
Awesome. What is on your bucket list next?
Ooh, some sleep. Bucket list. Not much, to be honest with you. I just kind of, I'm quite old now. Surviving a bit longer would be good. Having a healthy life for my family and I. There is no bucket list as such. Everything that I wanted to do, I've done in terms of experiences. I've traveled, I've got to work in cool things and with cool people. I would love to reconnect with my muse Bjork. That would be amazing. She's just released some new music. That would be cool. I'd like to. I am curating. I am hosting exhibitions, so that's not really a thing. I wouldn't mind doing an interesting residency somewhere. A solo show. That would be cool. Yeah. And something. A number of philanthropic. I've got a. I like to do things for others. So yeah, something philanthropic.
Is there any particular cause in philanthropy or?
Many. I mean, the first NFT I released, I raised 80,000 for cancer research. I think cancer affects so many. Cancer prevention and cancer research. I did it with CRUK portion. And I also like to even the playing field and get people out of foster, so orphans, homeless and orphanage, because there's so much opportunity in people as individuals, and so you could really be losing out. The world could really be losing out by not giving people the opportunity to be themselves. So I quite like the idea of orphanages or homeless.
What is your favorite food?
Good question. Good question. I love food. So everything from, Japanese, like sushi, ramen, through to Asian cuisine, curries, Thai curries, meat dishes, classic steak, French stuff, steak and chips. I like fast food. I like pizzas. I like Italian food. There's too much.
So if you were stranded on an island and you could choose only one food and one item to take, which one would you take?
Oh gosh, one food to eat every day. I mean, whatever you pick is going to be a disaster, isn't it? Eventually, you're going to,
But if you just had to name,
probably something with a lot of spices, something with a lot of flavor, because then at least I can savor it. Yeah, probably a curry. And one item, my glasses.
okay.
Because, your senses are all we've got. So if I don't have these, I'm really in trouble. I won't even be able to climb for a coconut.
Who are the 3 people, living or dead, that you would like to have lunch with?
Living or dead? Bjork, David Bowie, well, I could pick Amy because she's dead and I'd just love to see her again. But if it wasn't someone I knew necessarily, there's so many great minds. Maybe Ricky Gervais.
All right. And why? Why did you name these 3?
Bjork, because she's an exceptional artist and an inspiration. David Bowie, same thing. He's just an interesting personality. Love to pick his brains. And that's my art creative side. And then Ricky Gervais, because or Joe Rogan, because they can just talk and they can make you laugh, and they're interesting, engaging, and I feel. So
you do listen to podcasts?
I don't really. I watch Joe Rogan on YouTube sometimes. Yeah, I like him a lot.
Awesome. So. What question would you ask them?
I would ask them what they are currently curious about.
Wow. So what are you currently curious about?
Compassion fatigue.
Compassion fatigue? That's a new term, Ami.
Compassion fatigue. Something, this idea is, let's say you see something that's very violent or very scary, and it's horrifying. It's a very unpleasant feeling. But if you see that thing over and over and over and over again, like a horror movie, you no longer feel that way. You have fatigue for the compassion, and that can be with something violent, happy, sad, because we're very immediate now in our culture. Tolerance and empathy is lacking. There's a lot of separation and segregation, and I think that's down to compassion fatigue. Because people are identifying as a group identity instead of individualism, and I'm a big advocate of individualism. I don't like group identity at all. I don't like being a other white background or whatever, brown, whatever you want to call me, male, who is straight with, I don't like that stuff. That stuff means nothing to me. I don't even need to know it. We never need to talk about it. It won't change my engagement or my relationship with you even a little bit. So I don't care about your color. I don't care about your race. I don't care about your sexuality. I'm not saying they're not important to you. I'm just saying for me, they're not. I care about you as a person. I want to know what you think. And I don't believe that another person that looks exactly like you with the same life experiences would think the same as you. I think you're completely unique. And so that's what I care about. Yeah.
Wow. What you mentioned Joe Rogan and his personality and about his videos. So what else do you like about his personality?
I said it. He's curious.
Mm-hmm.
He's like a child, and he kind of takes you on that journey. He asks questions. He's very unjudgmental. Someone can be saying the most wacky thing, to him, and he'll genuinely ask. But he does it in a way that's very assertive. He's very direct. He doesn't sugarcoat anything. If he doesn't agree with something or he thinks something's stupid, he says it. But he does it with an open mind, and I enjoy that. I feel like I go on the journey with him. And I often, I don't agree with everything he says. We don't have the same political views, for example, but I think he's a very rational person. I like that. I like people that can have discourse on anything and not be offended.
Mm-hmm.
I think people are, unfortunately, offended a lot at the moment, and that's sad. It's sad that we live in a time where there is so much to be offended about.
What country or place would you like to travel next?
Japan.
Why?
Probably Japan. Yeah, because it's so different. It's just so unique. There's so much beauty in that culture. So probably Japan.
Okay. What are some tips that you would give to our viewers from your life experiences, or
what tips would I give? Do as I say, not as I do. Be uniquely you. Don't lie. Be kind to other people. Do service for other people. That's it.
What is your morning routine?
I get up at about between 5:30 a.m. and 7, depending on...
Early, that's very early.
Yeah. I do the usual, the hygiene, and I get to work, unless it's the weekend, in which case I'm with the kids. It's very simple. I create. Every day is different, and I do what I think is most meaningful.
How do you face the blank canvas?
Yeah, I try not to approach a blank canvas without a plan. Yeah, I think it's different when you're a painter, let's say, and you can let the paint kind of take you somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
But I think with what I do, with the type of work that I do, 3D, and you can kind of just have a play around. But I usually like to have some kind of plan. Otherwise, I invariably will begin to feel very frustrated. Yeah, it's a tough one, though. I think everyone goes through that.
And there are some people who know exactly what to do, and there are some people who just go with the flow of the colors.
Well, if you do what you do, if your body of work is cohesive, you've always got a plan.
Yeah.
Kind of the dilemma, isn't
it? Are you a fan of Banksy?
I like Banksy, yeah.
So, would you like to meet him, and what would you talk if you met him?
I have met him.
You met him?
Yeah.
Wow.
And when I met him, I told him the story of how I nearly ruined one of his works in Kingston Hill. The story, a very sordid, drunken story. And I was very young. And we laughed about that. And that was it.
How did you get to meet him? Or how did you know that, okay, this is Banksy?
He has a group of people that work for him, the Rats. They're called like the Rat something, or they're like his management that verify the work and authenticate the work. And we knew someone back in the day that was associated with that, and then through a mutual friend. And I wasn't told it was Banksy. I wasn't introduced to them as Banksy. I was talking to them. I recognized the voice. I'd heard the voice.
How?
Well, yeah. His voice has been on a few things. Yeah, and I just mutual people, and then I realized, and so I told them the story, and we laughed about it, and I never acknowledged that it was him, and that was it.
That is so cool. Now that is on my bucket list.
Maybe it wasn't him.
Yeah. But it's really amazing what he does. As I'm going through the book, I'm just counting my days to come to London.
Is that the kind of art you like, street art?
Yeah, but the place where he's coming from with his artworks and the way he displays it, the mischief in it, I like all those aspects, the whole package of that.
Yeah. The Rats, the conceptual. He's very conceptually driven. Yeah.
That is amazing. Also, it's doing a graffiti on a wall there is on the bucket list. Of course, there are legal places, but yeah. Have you done picked up paints and done graffiti?
Have I done
graffiti?
When I was young, I tried it, like spraying. Yeah, I tried it. We used to play around on the train tracks, and you'd get in trouble with it. There's a group, British Transport Police, the BTP. You had to be careful that you could walk down the end of the platform, the train platform, and just walk down and go through the tunnels and just hide. And then, when the trains park up for the night in the train station, you can go and graffiti the trains, So I did that with some people a couple of times. I was far too scared for that kind of thing. And walls, but it wasn't good. I just did it. It was just being young, and I had some friends that were good at it, and so I kind of went around with them. But no, I wasn't like a graffiti artist or anything like that. Yeah,
it's a good thrill, right? It's a dopamine rush doing something like that.
Yeah, it is. I mean, there's a lot of legal places you can do. Yeah, it's incredibly, it's amazing. When it's done well, it's really something. I love the stencil work that Banksy does and people like that. Yeah.
What places in London would you recommend for art, culture, or NFTs?
Oh man, so many. Art culture. I mean, the whole of London. Visit the galleries. The Saatchi, Tate Modern. These are good galleries for contemporary art. Barbican Centre. all of that neck of the woods near Waterloo. Very cool. Yeah, there's so much. Art is everywhere in England.
That is amazing. Okay, so that was amazing. Thank you so much for your time. Looking forward to have you on our spaces, be a part of your spaces, and see what new artworks you create. And I'm just looking forward to see your whole journey ahead. And I'm so excited and happy and thankful that you came for the show today and gave all your insights. So thank you so much. Is there any words to conclude with for the viewers, or any comments that you want to make?
No, just thank you for your time, and sorry I couldn't do longer.
Thank you. Have a great day. Wish you the very best. Thanks for tuning in. Connect with me on Twitter and Instagram to get updates on the new shows and to participate on live recordings. All links are mentioned in the show notes. We will be back next week with another fantastic episode.